citizen of Wisconsin. Kingdom citizen, kingdom citizen, yeah, kingdom citizen. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Thank you, each and every one of you. Welcome to Think About It Tuesday. And I have some troublemakers with me today. And because of Think About It Tuesday, ain't no telling what they're going to say today. So I don't know if they are on level 1, level 5, level 9, level 20, level 100, but I'm sure they're going to let us have it today. So let's bring them up. First of all, we have the constitutional mom who, if probably in this show, if she's not calm, might try to deliver today. But we're going to try to keep her calm today, you guys. I know she got a lot to say. Never poke a pregnant woman, because when you poke a pregnant woman, she is not responsible for what she might do to you. So let's welcome the constitutional mama, Sarah.
Oh my God. You get more and more colorful as you go.
I know, right?
Oh Lord.
I have to do it in a way where everybody like, okay, what are you gonna say now? Because you never know what I'm going to say.
For sure. Oh,
so let's bring her tag team partner on WWE SmackDown show. She is courageous. She's a bully. Make her cry, you might die. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Mercy.
Oh Lord.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, we could rhyme. You should know, Dr. King, that I don't do sports, particularly the WWE stuff, because it's like against my moral code. So might not be the best, intro for me.
Well, it all depends, though. It all depends. You get. I can see if somebody messing with a PMA, you might turn into Andre the Giant. Or if somebody messing with your son, then you're gonna turn into Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Well, I am 5'2", and I do have red in this hair, and I have Irish roots. So I mean, that little dog, tiny dog syndrome, or that redhead.
It's a thing.
So you mean? Say I even have a wrestler for that one.
I know.
He used to be called the British Bulldog.
Oh my gosh.
So, ladies, how are y'all today?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
So I don't know where we want to start, but somebody
I think we start where Sarah was going to take us.
Oh, I was going to go there, in that route, but
I'm okay with that. So yeah, so I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. It is amazing the sacred cows you cannot touch, and they are so intertwined with things that we should be able to discuss at all times. So I made a simple comment on Facebook about how it amazes me that it amazes me. How did I put it? Basically, that it's only in a godless, immoral nation that we celebrate an entire month of the greatest sin.
Here's exactly what you said. Only an entitled, godless nation celebrates a whole month of the greatest of sins. Hashtag unpopular opinion.
Yes, that was it. And instantly, and of course, I knew this was going to happen, but instantly I got a whole bunch of comments about homosexuality, as if that's what I was talking about. Like,
well, right. I mean, it is a natural assumption, given the self-dubbed celebration of this month.
Yes.
So I can understand the assumption.
But here's and I totally understand it too, but here's where I was getting at with it, was that they cannot separate out their sacred cow of homosexuality or LGBTQ plus whatever. They can't separate that out from what is the greatest sin in the world, which is true. Pride is the greatest sin. It separates man from God. that was the exact point I was getting at, and I was hoping that more people would pick up on that aspect of it, which I did have some people pick up on it. But here's where I was going with that, was that um it's another example of them not saying exactly what they should be saying, which is they're celebrating the affirmation of the LGBTQ community and those proclivities and that lifestyle. They're proud of it. So yes, there's the pride aspect to it, but the problem is that it's not the pride that they're celebrating their proclivities. They're celebrating their choices in life that shouldn't be celebrated. Like, I don't have a heterosexual pride month, because like it's a pretty natural thing for a man and a woman to be together, right? But the fact that they're equating their proclivities with the greatest of sins is a really sad thing for me.
But wait. I got to jump in right now because I want to have some fun with this. I always have fun. But here's the thing, though, and that you brought it in a most, how should I say, sweetest way you could do it.
I'm trying to be gracious.
but at the same time, what we also forgetting is we took something that God made a promise with and shifted. The rainbow has nothing to do with your sex.
Yeah.
That rainbow was put there as a reminder of the promise that God made.
Yeah.
And so anytime the biggest problem is, it's not even talking about homosexuality. The biggest problem is the people of God not standing up for what's right.
Exactly.
That's it. It's not even about an individual that decides to lay down with the same sex. And the reason it's not is because each and every one of us, God put a free will in all of us.
Yep.
And so we have to, we know that everybody has a free will. What we have a problem with is when they take the free will from the children and indoctrinate those children into something that they're not. Because
and the irony of that is I had one very, very vitriolic lady accuse me of aborting my children. Apparently murder's the worst of sins, and then wished that my kids turned gay so that I would understand and I would learn to love them. Like, I don't even know who this person is. I have never met them before. I don't know how they got on my Facebook and they're like wishing pain on me. It's just accusing me of doing something. I'm like, I'm literally pregnant with my 6th child. I've never aborted a child in my life. Like, I don't know.
Well, see, when you get those kind of people, we just gotta pray for them because they confused and they lost.
Yeah.
But when we start to look at it from a moral standpoint, or not even a moral standpoint, just God's biblical principles on what God himself says.
Yeah.
And so when we start to look at it from that standpoint, then the same thing that deals with a homosexual is the same thing that deals with a murderer. Yep. It's the same thing that deals with a liar.
Yep.
It's the same thing that deals with a gossiper. Yep. It's the same. Because sin is sin, but all sin wraps under one word, and that word is disobedient to God. That's it.
Yeah.
So
it's opposition to God. That's what sin is. It's when you are in opposition to God and his will for you, right?
Are you struggling to count, Dr. King?
I'm struggling right now.
You know the reference, right? Do you know apparently this morning as we were getting ready, we just had the TV on and someone was making fun of a certain leader who cannot count because they said something about, I'll give you 2 words, and it was made in America.
He forgot the in part.
Right?
Made in America. Them the only 2 words.
No. I'm sorry. He forgot the America part. Made in whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
But no, and then you said 1 word, and then you said disobedient to God, like several words.
Well,
sorry.
The word I was using is disobedient.
I know.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Teasing.
Totally. I know you are. So when I start, don't y'all get on me, okay?
Yep. I want
us all the time. We gotta fight back a bit.
Yep. I love this challenge I gave myself of reading the Bible straight through because actually yesterday I got through Jeremiah 11.
Mm-hmm.
And 11:17 says, "The Lord of armies who planted you has decreed disaster against you because of the disaster of the house of Israel and the house of Judah brought on themselves when they angered me by burning incense to Baal."
Yeah.
So the burning incense to Baal, that's anything that's not of God, that's not, God ordained, God directed.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily burning incense to this man-made God called Baal.
Right.
It's anything that's not. It's just at the time that was the sin.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you say that because Baal was actually a conglomeration of many gods. There were different Baals that they worshipped in different locations.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, this is the thing. Like when I talk to my kids about sin, I don't tell them this sin is worse than this sin. This sin is, I don't pull out homosexuality and say, oh my gosh, if you ever, go down that road, I'm never going to forgive you and I'm never going to love you again. Right. That's not how I discuss this with my children. When I discuss sin with my children, I say, if you want to live your best life, if you want to be doing the things that are going to and it's not the health and wealth gospel, but the idea of live with the blessings that God promises us, then you live under his will, right? And when you are living outside of that, then you don't get those blessings. You don't get the best that your life can be. And that doesn't mean that we don't have suffering. It doesn't mean we don't face trials and all of those things. But I had my 5-year-old come up to me, well, when he was 5, so Jace is now 9, but at 5 years old, a neighbor kid came up to him and told him, I don't know how the conversation came about, but told him that boys can love boys. And he's, so like at 5 years old, I'm like, okay, how do I explain this to a kid here? Right. Cause he's like, is that true? Can boys be married to boys? And I said, okay, so there's one definition of marriage, and that's the definition that God gave it. Right. And that was when man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. And obviously I'm explaining this to a 5-year-old. So I'm trying to use, small language, but I'm like, so
you might have to use small language right now.
I was holding my tongue.
So I basically said, so when there's one definition for marriage, and that's the one that God gave it. There are people in this world who choose to label what they're doing as marriage, or to label what they're doing as love, that is outside of God's best. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't love one another in their way, right? It doesn't mean they can't live together as spouses in a sense, but the definition of marriage is the one that God gave it. And so anything outside of that is outside of his will and outside of his best for your life. So I said, you will see men saying that they love one another, and they might even be in a committed relationship together. Again, I'm talking to a 5-year-old, so I tried to lower it a bit, but I said, but they're living outside of God's best for them. And so they will never have the full blessings of the life that God promised them if they continue to choose to live that way. And I said, and that's that way. Just finishing it up. I said, and that's the way for any sin that we commit. If it's the sin, if we are a raging, fiery inferno at all times, then we are in unrighteous anger, and we are going to not face the blessings that God gives us, because we cannot get past that rage and that hate and whatever else is driving it, right? That's what any sin does to us. It lessens our blessings. It lessens our connection with God, because God has a perfect plan. This is his world. I heard a pastor say once, this is God's universe. Now, you cannot like what God is doing in his universe, but it is his universe. So if you want to change things, you get your own universe. And it's so true.
And I'm pretty sure it's not going to work by trying to take over or usurp the one that's existing.
Right.
Don't think that's going to work against, the creator of all things.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, it's going along with what's happening in, like, if we look at any aspect, it's not just the LGBTQ community that has pride, right? Think about the science community. There was another joke of God meeting the scientists, and the scientists saying, we've even come up with how to clone human beings. We no longer need you anymore. And God's like, okay, let's have a dare. You make a human and I'll make a human, and we'll see who wins, right? So God waits, and he gives the scientist the first chance. The scientist picks up some dirt, and God goes, whoa, you get your own dirt, right? Like, everything that we do in this world is something that God has already done and done way better than we ever can. They still cannot figure out how to make planes work exactly like a dragonfly or like another flying creature, because they cannot perfect what God has already perfected, right? And so this is where it's not just, when I mentioned that pride was the greatest sin, I literally meant pride. It wasn't just talking about the LGBTQ community. We're spending an entire month,
not that portion or that
right
niche of pride,
right?
Any and all pride.
Yes.
I mean, that's why it's so, to take this in a little bit different direction than just, the relevancy of this month.
Right.
We look at money. And so many have twisted, money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money. And that's money. Again, where pride comes in. And pride and jealousy and envy are all very, very intertwined.
Connected, yep.
And so when we have a feeling of lacking, it's because we want to have pride.
Right.
And so they're all very intertwined. So it really does all go back to pride. And that's part of the toxicity too of the American dream.
Yep. Right. And pride is the ultimate disobedience against God, because it says, I'm my own God, right? It says, I am able to handle my own life. I am like, we hear a lot about autonomy. There's no such thing as human autonomy. It's human self-governance. There's a huge difference, because autonomy has to do with saying, I'm my own God. I've created myself and I can do whatever I want, right? Self-governance is saying, God created me. I have a higher moral authority to live up to, and here's my responsibility to that, right? And so there's that difference. When we hear people saying, I am autonomous, we've got to immediately come back with, do you even know what that word means? Because that's pride. That's the root of it, right? Is the idea that I am my own creation or creator. So
yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at it for what it really is, it's a lot of people that when you look at pride, right?
Yep.
I tell my son, I am godly proud of you. I always tell him, I always use the word godly proud. I am godly proud of you for what you have done, what you have accomplished. What are you doing? But I also remind him, you're a leader. You belong to God. You're a mighty man of God. You cannot take the disconnection from God in yourself. And that is why, excuse me, that's why Jesus used John 15. He says, I'm the vine, you the branch. Now, as you ladies know, you can take a piece of a plant, repotter it, and it'll grow. But if you take a branch from a vine, it will not grow. So that lets us know we can't do this without him. Yep. But I wanted to go back because a couple of things, because I had to jump off. Somehow I blew a fuse and I don't know how I did it. But when we look at, when you were talking about your son and you was trying to explain marriage and everything, I wanted to just mess y'all mind up. So Sarah, you're the only one might be safe in this, okay?
Oh, Lord.
So when you talk about marriage, right? We got different clarity or understanding of marriage, right? You got marriage where now you have to have a license, a marriage license, right? Yeah. You have a marriage where somebody lived together for a good number of time, and it's called common law marriage, right?
Yep.
Then you have the biblical marriage.
Yep.
So let's talk about the biblical marriage for a moment.
I think I know where you're going with this.
So the biblical marriage is when a man go into a woman, that's marriage. It's not the ceremony. It's not who they stand in front of and say, do you? It's the moment he went into. So if that's the case, you got a lot of folks that's married to a lot of people.
Yeah. And there is a little bit more to it. I've been listening to this podcast called the Eden podcast, and it basically lays out in Genesis the 4 touch points for a lawful marriage under God, basically. And it's really interesting. I'm trying to remember them. I can't remember them in order. Consummation was one of them, but the other, there was one, leaving your father and mother, cleaving to your wife, those types of things. And it really deals with the whole picture of what this looks like, and they stand before God naked and unashamed, basically.
Right.
And that's where it really comes down to is this idea that we have now, that we can just redefine things that God has already defined. And that's where I came with that entitled godless nation, because we've denied God. We feel like we are entitled to, we take pronouns, we take a part of grammar structure, and we decide, okay, we're going to redefine it to fit what I feel, right? And these types of things are, it just drives me nuts. I almost wish English was a dead language, because it would mean it could not be changed anymore.
Oh my gosh, girl. So this morning on the news that we were watching, suffering through, Al Roker was talking about the pollution that's going on right now, and he said something about ozone and some other kind of pollution. Yeah. And he defined ozone as something very much other than what it is, scientifically speaking, from a true technical term. And instantly I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, there is, even in the freaking weather and the atmosphere, they are redefining.
Yes.
Like, if y'all have not read 1984 yet, get freaking on it, y'all.
But you gotta understand, they've been redefining the weather for a while now with global warming and
global climate change.
Then they changed global warming to climate change.
I can speak on that too. Y'all, I studied meteorology for 3 years. Climate change is a normal part of the atmosphere. It's always in a constant state of chaos and change. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have weather.
Of course, we experience climate change in Wisconsin all the time. We got 4 different climate change or we ain't gonna.
Only have 2: winter and construction.
Right. So let's do it the way they do it. It's 4 seasons. It's not climate change. It's 4 seasons. But when we really start to look at this and say, okay, you know what? We're allowing them to just change things. Even with our children and homosexuality or being gay. And I asked the person, let me ask you this. I said, can a virgin be a nymphomaniac?
Oh, gosh.
There's no way a virgin cannot say, you know what, I feel like I'm a nympho today. How?
Yeah.
How? You never had sex. So how could you be a nymphomaniac? Right?
Yeah.
So how can our children all of a sudden, who never touch sex, never taste sex, nothing, all of a sudden they feel gay and it's okay?
Because they've been given an awareness of sexuality without understanding it, right?
Right.
It is inundated in everything, in our clothing, in our media, in our entertainment, and they see that, but they have no understanding of it. And so their friends, their mom's friend has decided that their son is going to be transgender, and so therefore, I must be too, right? It is all this peer pressure. These kids are being, and you think about it, they're raised for 8 to 10 hours a day, sometimes more, in this public school where they have a few supposed authority figures, and then the rest of them are the kids their age. They are stuck with kids their age who have no understanding themselves, and yet there's
so many things wrong with it, because first of all, we are very ignorantly and stupidly, frankly, trusting the education and upbringing of our kids to a government that wants control over our kids.
Okay.
And they have said it over and over and over.
Off-size, travel, personal file. I heard a guy say, and he's not lying. What we see right now came from the church. The homosexuality, the pedophilia of against our children, all of that happened in the church. Look how it's coming out now. The Catholic Church, right? But you also hear the different other denominational churches now, where the children they're adults now that say they're molested by a preacher, the pastor, a deacon.
But I mean, that also, we can't just say it's just the church, because it was started. The agenda itself was started by godless people who rejected the church.
Right.
Now they infiltrated the church through education and through other things and through the government. And like, okay, so I'm watching something called Shiny Happy People.
I was just gonna mention that.
Amber, you will love to hear this. I was actually part of ATI for about 4 years in my.
What is it? Because I will be frank, like completely honest, these acronyms that they're using, yes, I'm actually not familiar with. So myself and everyone watching, enlighten us on these acronyms.
Okay. So where do I start? Okay, so in about, I believe it was the 60s and 70s, Bill Gothard saw all of the craziness of that generation, all of the rebellion against authority, all of the just falling away from the church, the drugs and the sex and the, rock and roll and stuff. And he grew up in a Christian home, or I should say a Baptist home. His father was a minister. I'm not going to make any judgments on whether or not they were Christian or not, but they grew up in a Baptist home, a very, very fundamentalist home. And so out of that background, he saw what was happening and he decided to do something about it. So think about the purity culture, right? The purity movement, the same thing, where it's like you see a problem and you go the extreme opposite in order to fix it. That's what Bill Gothard did. So he created this thing called IBLP, Institute for Basic Life Principles. At first, it was Institute for Basic Youth Principles, where he would go into prisons. He'd go into kind of the worst of the juveniles and basically tell them there's 7 basic principles that if you follow these, you will have success and you will be following God. And they were now I'm trying to remember all of them. There was the authority was the biggest one, and I'm going to stick with that one because there's 6 other ones, but the authority was the hugest, biggest part of the entire thing, and that was the principle under which all of the other principles rested. And so what happened was he basically said that there are these umbrellas of authority. And you start with God as the big umbrella, and then you have the family. And there's obviously other umbrellas like the government and church and those things, but his biggest focus was on the family. Now, granted, keep in mind he was talking to a lot of broken homes, like kids from broken homes, so the family was already pretty shattered. So it basically gave these kids this idea that if you stay under the umbrella of authority of God, and then you are under the umbrella of authority of your father, and then your mother's under that, and then you are the child, right? Then you are going to be in line with God's principles and purpose for your life. So ironically, the whole setup of it was basically a very, very subtle version of the health and wealth gospel, which is, but the people in it would never have called it that, because it was all about, right, you follow these 7 basic principles and you submit yourself to your governing authorities, whatever that looks like, and you will succeed in life. You won't get cancer, you won't die in car crashes, but if you take yourself outside of that umbrella of authority, any one of them, you are opening the door for Satan to build strongholds in your soul. And so that's kind of the basics of it. There's definitely more to it, but ATI was the Advanced Training Institution, and that was Advanced Training Institute, and that was the homeschool curriculum that he created when this started to become this big thing. And so he was like, well, we need to give an educational option because the public school is obviously doing a crap job, even back then. And so in the 70s and 80s is when they started ATI. So that was an umbrella, or under the umbrella of IBLP, which was where, and all of the 7 basic principles came into that curriculum. And it was him and gosh, I don't remember how many, but there was a core family who kind of worked out all of the kinks and put all of these things together. And they were called wisdom booklets. And so there was wisdom booklets for language arts. There was wisdom booklets for history. There was wisdom booklets for math, all of these things. And basically they basically were touted as, you have these books and our character qualities, and you will have the entire curriculum. In fact, you're almost getting a pre-law, pre-med degree by finishing these and doing these every year. Not true. And so basically what he would do is he would take out these scriptures, or he would take out he would start with the principle, and then he would take out scriptures that matched that principle, and then he would expand into all of the different subjects. So language arts, history, science, math, all of those different subjects. And that principle would somehow like draw all of these subjects together and make sense with the few scriptures that were scattered in. And then you had I think there were 36 character qualities. So you had like obedience and punctuality and purity. I mean, just there was a whole bunch of different things, but they were all based on these 7 basic principles. And the problem is that Bill Gothard was not a Bible teacher. He called his revelations, what he called his private revelations that he shared with everybody, were called rhemas, which basically meant that he took out a scripture and said, this is what this means. I was laughing with my sister the other day because one of the things that he was really big on was this like cleanliness is next to godliness and healthy eating. He's not a scientist. He's not a dietitian,
nutritionist, or
he had a biblical model of diet that if you followed this biblical model of diet, and it was very specific foods, very specific types of things, and then you would be healthy and happy and all of that stuff. Same thing with the cleanliness thing. And I was laughing with my sister because I'm like, you know what? Hitler did the same thing. Yeah. Like that was how he got the Jews to be enemies of the people, because he was like, they're vermin and disease carrying. And so therefore we must get rid of them because we must be clean and healthy. So yeah. So like
every generation there's one.
Well, yes. I mean, when you look at
Bill Gothard didn't kill anybody, but he definitely did a whole lot of wounding, and it came down to that word authority. Authority meant if you were under an umbrella, if you were a child, you had no ability to question authority. None.
Right. And that's why
you had no ability to question your husband's authority.
Right. That's why I was saying with the churches, these people wanted to please God, so they was under these authority. And so, like, there was one where the pastor got up, he told the church, 20 years ago, I had an affair, right? And he says to the church, now this is the authority. He said to the church, I'm sorry for having this affair. Would y'all please forgive me? And they gave him a standing ovation because he was repenting, right? Well, the person he had an affair with said, if y'all love me, y'all will let me speak. And they let her speak. What the pastor didn't say was, the person he had an affair was a child. He took her virginity in his office. Yeah. He was in the bed with her from the age of 15, 16. So he didn't tell the whole truth. But what happened is, you don't question that authority. Yeah. You had young boys that was being molested that did not. So most of this came out.
And not only that, but some of these children engaged in these acts too when they were in their early teens and things. And this is one thing I didn't like about the shiny happy people thing, was it obviously has a spin on it, an agenda. They're trying, and they basically lump all Christians under this same umbrella.
Thank God I'm not a Christian. Hey.
Yeah, but one of the things they said about the situation with Josh Duggar, he's the oldest son and he was engaged in a lot of stuff. As a child, and this is literally how this is done. You have no sex is a taboo topic. Your parents do not talk about it. They treat it as if it is evil and gross and disgusting and scary, and you cannot touch that topic. And so this poor kid who's growing into his hormones and he's slowly moving into manhood, and he has no idea who he can go to and who he can talk to. They said that the ATI trains up predators, and I hated that term because most of these were kids. It doesn't train up predators. It trains up wounded and broken children who do not know how to act like healthy, godly
and
adults.
that's why I prefer more of the terms like grooming.
Yeah.
Because that is more in alignment what it is. Because as kids are being raised, and like even today, you know,
Grooming.
Grooming is more used in terms of trafficking and those victims.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Clean it up now, because I was finna say.
Not
nothing
like
to do with your hair,
kind of
Dr. King.
grooming. Well, or washing your, waxing your
waxing your head.
But
I'm done with both of y'all.
A lot of us did grow up, even if we weren't part of that officially, the ATI and those other acronyms. Like a lot of us still can relate by having grown up in this purity culture, that it's my job as a single female to make sure I'm not tempting men.
Oh my gosh, that was
a married woman. It's my job to bend at every beck and call to the will of my husband. Like, and the toxicity. And
it doesn't say that in scriptures at all.
And really just,
so what about being barefooted, pregnant, and in the kitchen?
That if that is a woman's individual choice and her husband is on board with it, that is fine. They have every right to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, but to use that as, and this is where I'm doing this Eden podcast. I think I shared it with you, Amber. I will share the link because it is such a great thing. It is diving into the original intent of these passages that have been taken out of context and used to basically keep women beat down in the church and in the church. It's not outside of the church, it's in the church. And I'm not a feminist by any stretch of the imagination, but I am definitely for when the church is abusing the scriptures in order to take half of the population of that church and say you are less than. I have a problem with that. I have a very, very big problem with that. And I am not teaching my daughters that they are less than men just because they have a breasts and a vagina. Like, that is not my thing, right? Yes, I said those words. And guess what? My daughters know those words.
Speaking of that documentary that you're talking about and what we're talking about in this moment, did you guys see that What is a Woman documentary?
Yes.
Yep. I watched it last Friday. Well, actually, I listened to it on my drive home, so I was being safe. Yep. But
yeah,
it was fan-freaking-tastic, and it really shows the lack of critical thinking that is going into this, and that there are entire degrees in college universities on this subject when they can't even define it.
Yes. Well, that one professor, he actually does women's studies.
Right.
And they asked him what a woman was. Couldn't define it. How do you do an entire semester course on women if you don't even know what women are?
Especially as a dude.
Right.
Well, see, first of all, I'm gonna let y'all have this topic because I'm
a woman and you're not a biologist, right? So you can't define it.
I am not. How should I say? Wasting time on something that's just like asking what is a dog versus what is a cat. I mean,
and he actually used that example, like
one guy,
defining a cat.
Yeah.
I mean, all you got to do is go to the Bible. The Bible tells you what a woman is.
Yeah.
I mean, we let them make us spend a lot of time on dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Like defining what a woman.
Well, and this is what's bothering me so much about the conservative movement right now. I shouldn't say the conservative, the Republican Party right now. Yes. It is what is bothering me so much is
They're falling for it.
We're falling for it, and we are compromising every step of the way, and it is destroying our country. And we're like, oh well, at least we got this bill in place as opposed to this bill, which would have been 10 times. No, all of them are worth. If you vote yes on any of these bills that are coming down right now, you are literally part and parcel to the destruction of America. Because I'm sorry, none of these bills are worth it. They are destroying our country, and a lot of them have all of these little asides or little, what's the word, appendices or whatever you want to call them, that are dealing with things like the LGBTQ community. They're dealing with things like women's health and all of these things, and none of it. It's a complete failure. It is a complete and total failure.
All I gotta say is every woman, real woman, that has breasts and vagina by birth, not brought,
functional ones,
not
designed to work,
not paid for, not surgical, but birth, should be upset that when it was so-called International Women's Day, and Biden gave a transgender the award, that was a slap to every woman. And and no uproar though. There was not an uproar.
Say something like that. You're a Nazi if you say something like that. You're a homophobic, transphobic, bigoted, misogynistic white person if you say that. And it's like,
wait, I'm white now?
This is how you become white, Dr. King.
I'm sorry, white supremacist. You're a white supremacist. You don't have to be white skin color to. And although here, here's another thing that bothers me. I am not white. I am a lighter tone of melanin, which is a brown skin pigment. So
I'm pretty sure this a brown person right now looks pretty pink to me. Yes, I can look very.
Now I can say some things and make y'all turn. I can say some things and make y'all turn red now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you could.
You always can. I'm gonna distract from that quick before you go down that path. Literally this morning, we were listening to some sports radio on the drive home, and they were talking about how one of the people on this talk show, didn't know who the Rat Pack was. No, that's not the main point. But what that got me thinking about is how bombarded we have become in all of these very short-term hot topics to keep us distracted from where we came from, the journey to where we are now, and where we're going.
Yeah.
And
wait a minute, the Rat Pack. Are you talking about Sammy Davis Jr.?
Yes, sir. This person did not know who they were, and I can almost guarantee that this person was older than me. I don't know who it was, but if not, still like, huh?
Yeah.
And yet they reference, is it like the Wu-Tang Clan or whatever? I'm familiar with that name. I don't even know who that is. So, but anyways, it got me thinking. So my main focus isn't the Rat Pack. It got me thinking. I love music, and one of my favorite songs, like top 20 songs, is "We Didn't Start the Fire," Billy Joel.
Yep.
And yes, I know he can
Who
be
is Billy Joel?
hard. Oh,
I even know Billy Joel, and I grew up in a very fundamentalist conservative household. So don't give me that, Dr. King.
And the reason that, I know he can be very politically charged and is very opinionated.
Yes.
And in the same breath, Billy Joel. And in the same breath, that "We Didn't Start the Fire" song, I was looking it up. I've looked it up before and I forgot. There's 119 references in that song. If we collectively started this weekly, not here, but
he even mentions jabs. Did you know that? He mentions
yes,
jabs.
He did. Started this little study on all the different references and why they're significant. Ooh. Some of them, yes, just have to do with culture at the time, pop culture, sports culture. Might not be the most influential in life.
They made a mark. They did make a mark.
Well, one of my favorite songs, and I know y'all gonna think I'm kind of lost in my brains, but the lyrics of this song is so good. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell you the lyrics. You got to tell me who it was.
Okay.
All right. It says, "Mama, I just killed the man."
Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Queen.
I put my gun up to his head.
Pull the trigger, now he's dead.
Yeah, see, y'all know it. See, I ain't crazy. Y'all the ones.
Dude, I grew up on all this
Yes,
stuff. I grew
they
up
were-
from everything from the 50s, and like the Rat Pack stuff with Sinatra and all of that. I call it decades of music because I listen to all of it.
Oh,
Really,
yeah.
the only thing I don't listen to is the stuff where they're like breaking their vocal cords, screaming heavy death metal kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I hate
Okay.
And most rap.
Y'all got to
I
answer this question right here. Wait a minute. Let me find it. Oh, here it is. Wait, nope, that's not it. There it is.
I mean, I dare you to
Lindsay,
try.
Lindsay, were you not here last week? Girl, we gotta talk because you and me as people don't really fit the definition of a taxpayer according to the IRS tax code. So we got some talking to do. I got some connections for you, girl.
Yep.
I
don't know
don't
how
want to
to
pay
answer
none
that,
either, so you're gonna have to connect
Yeah,
me too.
connect with me too.
I know, but you know, I want to identify as a 6'4" sexy black man that always getting in trouble. Oh wait, that's who I am.
You're 6'4"? Well, I guess I believe
Oh, yeah,
that.
he's tall.
Tall.
Yes, I am 6'4".
He's over a foot taller than I am.
I know. Same here.
I'm so sorry about that.
Actually, I'm 5'5", so a little less than a foot.
So
I will keep that inch.
So what you do is when you go to a store and they say, you know what, or you go to Great American Song, you want to get on a ride, and they say, well, you're too short. Say, no, I feel like I'm 6'5".
Yeah, there you go.
And then you get on the ride.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, last time my family did a family trip to Valley Fair when I was a kid, we only did it a couple of times, but the last year I was finally barely tall enough to go on certain rides. And one of them, I was like, if my hair had been poofy, I probably could have made it. But they still let me on anyways because
funny.
like I was so close. It was close enough to count.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
So since we was talking, I'm gonna bring us back over to the pride thing,
Mhm.
and not just
It's really, I mean, that's what all of this has come down to is pride and saying that we, like I said at the beginning, we create ourselves, and so therefore we can be whatever we want to be. We can do whatever we want to do, which goes absolutely opposite to the atheist worldview, which basically says we're just balls of cosmic meat floating around and like we have no sort of, you know, autonomy at all or self-governance because it just happened. We're just
basically just victims of our own existence.
Yeah.
So we was monkeys and then humans.
No, we started out as little amoebas.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we
don't forget that step, Dr. King. That's a really important one.
I keep forgetting that. I'm like, okay, let's forget that and let's trying to concentrate on how we got from this to this. And then we started watching Planet of the Apes, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But you know, the reason I want to go back is this. One of the things that we don't pay attention to is that when a nation take over a territory, they slap down their flag.
Mm-hmm.
And that flag means that they rule that area.
Yep.
Well, the state capitol has the pride flag on top.
Yep.
And we're not paying attention. Flags mean something. Flags means who runs that area, that territory.
Yeah.
So when our soldiers, when they took over territory, they put down the United States flag. That meant something.
Yep.
So to take down or to add something, you're putting a pride flag over the state, well, over the nation now because everybody's doing it.
Yep.
You're telling God that this country is a country that is governed by pride and not by God.
Yeah. Well, and you try any other flag, try the Reformation flag, try something, try just just try a flag that has to do with something in the, you know, the crusade flag, whatever, you know, something to do with Christendom. And we can argue about whether they were good or bad, but anything to do with Christendom, and you will have a backlash. They will not touch it. They will not, you know, they'll put up a pride display in the library, but you ask them to put up the Reformation Week display and they will come back with, well, it's religious, we can't do that.
Well, I'm gonna put a kingdom.
Tell me that the pride display is not religious. It is a religion. They have their own gods.
And there's a whole conversation even about the respect we give to flags, because even that can become idolatry that's not of God. Even our respect and honor to the American flag is a form of idolatry. And that's, I know a lot of patriots who truly had like a coming to God moment and realized like the flag is just a representation. It should not be touted as this idol, as a statue, as this thing to be worshipped.
Right.
But that's a whole nother thing. What you were saying about like the displays in the libraries, KrisAnne Hall has at least a couple podcasts on that same topic where, you know, they'll have, and this is back in 2018, you know, the drag show reading at libraries or the drag, you know, stars reading at libraries. But they as in KrisAnne Hall and her husband JC would be fighting tooth and nail to be able to come and speak in that same library. And she would have to put on her lawyer hat and be like, if you are funded by the government and by the taxes of we the people, you by law have to give open opportunity to all. And she was actually not fighting the fact that public libraries are having these, you know, drag story times because they're taxpayers too, so they technically do have equal access to that publicly paid for library.
Right. And here's the thing: if parents would get up off their asses and stop taking their kids to these things, we'd have
and get off of this thing.
We wouldn't have drag queen story hours, because
don't take your kids.
Right, exactly. The parents are the ones who are perpetuating this, and it's sickening. They're abusing their children, and they're laughing about it and giving dollar bills to half-dressed naked men who think they're women, like mentally disturbed people.
And this is back where
you pride said a potty word.
Sorry.
This goes back to the whole pride thing. Even pride in our own understanding of ourselves and a lack of understanding again where we came from.
I won't even just say parents, because parents do play a role, but those of us who claim to be of God, to represent God, we have to stand up and say enough is enough. We have to stand up and say, well, if you're going to do that, we should be able to run a revival in this place.
And that's where we need to refocus. What you were saying, Sarah, about the Republican Party, like
not even wait a minute. Not the Republican Party, the people of God. Because here's the problem that we have.
I was specifically targeting.
We can't target
addressing them for a reason.
I know, but what I'm saying is we can't even target them. We got to target all the people of God, because you got people of God on the Democrat side too that is claiming to love God, but it's going along just like the ones on the Republican side. We have to really take a look and say, you know what? We're getting so far away from God that we need to do an exodus from both parties to come back together and really do this thing, because the sad part about it is this. And I remember when we was kids, we used to say, me and my brothers, it's your turn to wash dishes. No, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. No, it's your turn. So guess what? We both end up getting a whooping because the kitchen's still dirty. Instead of we saying, you know what, let's come together and let's do these dishes together. Because if the dishes doesn't get done, we're going to get it. So you got believers on the Republican side, you got believers on the Democrat side. If we don't do what God wants done, we all getting a whooping.
Yep. That wasn't where I was going, but I agree.
Okay, now go where you was going, but I had to say that.
When we're talking about this dichotomy, this push and pull from the two sides, if the Republican, if those on the Republican side that say what they stand for is conservatism and Constitution, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
if they're saying they're standing for these things, then don't even give an ounce of energy
Right.
to fight or defend against these, prideful things.
Right.
Put the focus back in what you're actually saying you're fighting for.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. I mean, that's taking it to like the next level
Now,
beyond where I
Mercy.
was going.
Now, Mercy, I got a question for you, Mercy. Name me one Republican that's in office that are doing what you say they should be doing.
No, right.
Yeah.
And it's those in
not
office
happening.
and those in the party too, because I see people all over Facebook who say that they're Republican or right side leaning, and they're getting so just so invested in fighting this rainbow pride thing of this month. It's like, that's not where your energy should be. Your energy should be educating and focusing on truth, not fighting the wrong, because we know we're standing in truth with the capital T.
But wait a minute, how can now here's I'm playing the advocate. I ain't gonna use his name, but I'm playing the advocate. Y'all ready for this?
Yep.
How you expect the Republican Party to fight or even call itself going against the flag or what it stands for when they doing Dan Kelly race, they was parading around a LGBTQ member across the state trying to get people to vote.
Yep.
Well, and that goes back to we've lost the foundational principles that we were conserving, and so now we're just conservatives because we are the more tolerant group and we're the more
focusing on conservative stuff.
And when it comes to conservative, you got homosexual conservatives,
right?
You got Christian conservatives, you got physical.
If we were though putting our focus back on learning and teaching truth with a capital T, like we should have been all along, like we somehow lost touch of. But if we got back to truly just focusing on teaching truth with a capital T and just putting on the freaking blinders to the nonsense, because no matter what we do in this world, as individuals, as collective, God-loving people, there will always be distractions from darkness, whether that's illness, whether that's financial issues, whether that's social issues, family issues. There will always be challenges, because when you're focusing on truth, that's when we're going to get bombarded. So if we're just ignoring and putting our blinders on to that bombardment and standing in the truth of God,
here's the biggest problem. I said this on a interview radio show on yesterday. When it comes to us, and when I say us, I'm talking about us as believers, we take the scriptures and say, well, the scripture says, I should know the Spirit. I should try the Spirit by the Spirit, right? And I should know them by the fruit they bear, right? So if that's the truth, then why don't we try the Spirit by the Spirit before we elect these folks?
Yeah.
Why don't we know them by the fruit?
It even goes back before we choose which ones we're going to be putting up on the election block, right? Like I'm going to state convention in a couple weeks, and I'm just like already dreading it. Yeah, I'm already dreading it, because it's just like it's a mess, and there's no accountability, and they've already chosen who they want to run, who they're going to endorse. They're not letting we the people govern at all. They're all about, we're the elites, we know what's best for the people, we're going to make these decisions, and you guys are just going to have to stand in line, or we're going to call you agitators, we're going to call you
traitors,
traitors. Like, so I mean, they treat the word patriot, they treat as a dirty word now, because if you stand up and you object to something that they've already said, this is part of our, I don't even want to say platform, this is part of our dogma, then therefore you must be against us, right? And I was just thinking about this in regards to the concept of pride and everything. Pride itself is almost a religion in and of itself. And any, like, this is why this is why this idea of, we're not religious, the pride community is not religious or whatever. It's not true, because this is the definition, the actual definition of religion. It says religion is human beings' relation to that which they regard as holy, sacred, absolutely spiritual, divine, or worthy of a special reverence. That's what religion is. In its purest form, that is what religion is. And if you look at that, I shouldn't say purest form, in its basic form, that's what religion is. And that goes so far against what God defined religion as in James. Pure religion, as God defines it, is this: that we look after orphans and widows in their distress, and we keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Yeah, that's it. So we've got the religion of the dictionary definition of it, what that means, and in that case, the LGBTQ community right now is the biggest religion in America because they are infiltrating every aspect of our life, and they hold their sacred cow and they idolize it. And nobody can speak out against it, and you will be burned at the stake if you do, right?
Now,
maybe not literally.
I can't say this though. Part of that community, and I take my hat off to them, is that they are fighting for our children because they're sick and tired of the transgender stuff that's being pushed on the kids. So I will say that I think the biggest problem with that is we're fighting the wrong fight. We're not fighting because whether, for example, Sarah, you're a county supervisor. So if there's a small group of those alphabets in your district, you're there to represent them, right? You're there to love.
I represent everybody in my district.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that I'm going to stand for everything that they represent.
No. I'm not saying it that way. I'm saying that you represent everybody. I'm not saying you're supposed to support every immorality or anything like that. But them as a person, we have to represent. We have to.
And that's again where, if we go back to what people's God-given natural rights are, not I have a right to feel safe.
Or not offended, right? I have the right to be not offended.
If we were
if that's the case, then I have a right not to be offended. So but the thing that I'm saying is, this is what separates us from everybody else. And I'm saying us as the people of God. I mean, we're not there to bash, we get in office to bash them. No, we're there to make sure that the will of God is being done, that the oppressed is no longer being oppressed, that the widows and the orphanage, those are being taken care of, that everybody feels safe according to the Constitution, right? And we're not sitting there saying, oh, well, let's make new laws. No, we have to just honor what is honored, because I'm gonna tell you something. If I had the power, I would make it a law that everybody in Wisconsin be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Because I feel that everybody should be part of Steeler Nation.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, do you see what I'm saying though? So when we look at this thing, our feelings ain't got nothing to do with God's given rights.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
And we have lawmakers today who don't even understand the original intent of the law itself, and so therefore, how are they making laws? Because
they're being activists from and that's exactly what we've been warned about over and over again from our forefathers. That, and not necessarily in those terms, but you cannot have activist judges. You cannot have people who are activists and have their own personal agenda or opinions. Right. Their only opinion should be, is this constitutional? Is this our God-given rights or not?
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the point I'm trying to make. So when we can take the focus off of dividing and hating, we belong to God. We ain't allowed to hate nobody.
Yeah.
I might not like your ways, but I still got to love you.
And
I might not. I might not be in agreement with you, but according to God, I still gotta love
The
you.
only thing we're supposed to hate is evil, and there's a lot of evil going on. But the other thing is it's not the first time in history that we've had a lot of evil going on, even in America, right? So this is definitely not the first time we've ever faced
And it won't
this.
be the
Now,
last.
right, exactly. This idea that somehow we're going to be able to, I don't know, just
Overcome
like
it or beat it.
or not even that, but just like surf our way through it until we get to heaven.
Right.
Like that's
Yeah.
not how
But
it
we
works.
can. But if we take our rightful place, we can control it.
Yeah.
If we don't take our rightful place
Right.
and we continue to allow evil to be in
Well,
charge,
and that goes back to that original Genesis dominion plan, right? We're to take dominion over the earth. We're to take.
right?
We're supposed, and then the Great Commission that matches up with that, saying teaching them everything. I'm discipling the nations. It doesn't say discipling the people. It says discipling the nations for a reason, because he knew there are multiple nations, there are sovereign nations that need God, and we are
Yes.
seeing in the 20th and 21st centuries the worst centuries as far as godlessness goes, because we have lost that. All of these Western nations that started with a foundation in God, they've lost that. They've not just lost it, they gave it up. They surrendered that, and
Yes.
we need to take that back.
Yes.
This is I guess this is where my brain is going right now. Like, again, if we were less focused on the here and now so much as the journey, the historical journey of where we, how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
I even think about it biblically, with my favorite verse, John 14:12, we'll come here to do greater things, even greater things, those who are believers. And one of my dogs.
Oh.
Well, and he's sick too.
Yeah.
He's doing greater things.
Well, something's moving. But that's again where we would be so triumphant, even over this constant bombardment of evil that comes up every generation all the time, because we would know our truth. We would know, not our truth as like my truth is, it's our truth with a capital T. And this wouldn't be such a surprise, such a battle all the time, because we would be so triumphant when we know, like, oh, we can, just like if you're identifying abusers, there are red flags. If we knew our history, if we knew our truth, we would see the red flags coming a mile away and be able to head it off, and not have to be in a reactionary position, but be in a proactive offensive position. And that's really where it's, coming down to, like, we have to stop being so reactionary. We knew this was coming. It is a cyclical mess that comes every, all the time. And yes, it takes different forms, it takes different shapes, but in the end, it's the same evil, the same mess. And we just need to start identifying it for what it is. And something I was just thinking about when you guys were talking, like, this whole concept, marketing concept, facts tell but stories sell. If you look biblically, that's kind of where Jesus was coming from. He had all these parables, all these stories giving example of what he's trying to teach. He's not just saying, as facts that we have to mindlessly memorize, like we're taught to do in schools. He was taught these stories because to understand the how and why of the Good Samaritan and the people who didn't stop first, knowing the context of those individuals first,
the cultural relevance that was taking place at that time,
critical thinking of why this is the right path, and helping people get to this, get from A to B logically, and why point B is the best route, not just a good route, not just a feel good route in the short term, but why it's the ultimate best route. We have to take people on that psychological journey, on that mental journey.
And even with that, it's what we as individuals who belong to God does, because none of us ever been in a local, a county, or state, not even government or federal, but we never had godly leadership to be an example of what it would look like, right? So we have to make up in our mind to be that light, like John 5:16 says. So let your light show shine. Well, I'll read it. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your moral, excellent, and praiseworthy, noble, and good deeds, and recognize and honor and praise and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So they need to see, we can talk about the stories all day long, but they need to see it. That's just like they say, train up your child. Yep. It ain't telling your child what to do, it's demonstrating to your child what to do. Sarah can open her mouth all day long and tell her daughters to be a good wife, but if they don't see her being that good wife,
right. So that brings me a really good question. You brought it full circle. We talked about all of these problems, and now I'm proposing we focus on the solution here that you so eloquently brought us up to. How do we do something about this? We're recognizing all of these different problems. And what you're saying is, lead and
so what county are you in? What county do you live in?
Jackson.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mercy is going to run for Jackson County Supervisor.
Well, let's start smaller because that sounds really overwhelming.
No, that's not. Stop.
Hey, I'm in it, and I'm definitely going to say it is overwhelming because there's a lot of things. So here's the thing: the overwhelming part is not the job itself. The overwhelming part is dealing with people who are kind and generous and love their community and are using the force of government and money from their taxpayers to supposedly change things and make things better. Mm-hmm. And it's not working. And all they do is, I don't know why it's not working. That's what's the most frustrating and concerning part.
Yep. So the reason, Dr. King, I mentioned that sounds so overwhelming is I'm speaking on behalf of normal people, because we're not taught. I could not even define for you, and I'm being honest because people need honesty and they need to know that they can be related to. I could not define for you what county supervisor really means, just on a basic core definition level. And so if I struggle with that, and everyone watching, well, okay, maybe not some of the people we got watching, because we got some pretty awesome people here. But
yeah,
the average person doesn't even know that we have a county supervisor or what the county board really does. They make decisions about money. Like,
okay,
that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to break this down into.
I know, but here's the thing. But here's the thing. You're connected to Sarah, so that squashes all your excuses why you can't.
No, I'm gonna be with Amber on this one because I'm literally learning my job as I go.
But here's the thing, though. I know you're learning. I don't
like a lot of aspects of it.
The thing about it is this: what we do is we sit there and we understand. We look at it from a government side, which make it look scary. Look at it from a business side, and all you're doing is making decisions that's going to present better service for those people that put you there.
But see, I don't agree that that's what a county board supervisor is. Well, they're a governing body that represents the people, so their representation is not a business. It is a.
Well, you have to govern it by like a business.
I disagree. I don't think the government.
Is it not providing service? Are you not dealing with a budget?
Yes, and I don't agree that we should be treating it like a business.
No. I said a business. Not a business per se, but a business mindset to make sure that the service that district needs, you're there to represent that district. You're there to make sure that district is being taken care of.
Tell me one business organization right now that is, and I'm not talking about mom and pop restaurants and things like that. I'm talking about the businesses that we see nowadays tell me one that is actually representing its people in the locale it's in. We have Walmart that is now selling transgender
Chick-fil-A.
right? Chick-fil-A is now going LGBTQ.
They're woke too.
Yeah, they're going woke too. So they're not, these businesses are not doing business principles and foundational. The principles of business are, we need to make more money for our business. And if we represent the people, then it's like icing on the cake, right?
And here's the thing, even with the business mindset.
Not necessarily, because even nonprofit runs almost with a business mindset or business principle.
Ours doesn't. Ours runs with a ministry principle in mind. How are we serving our people best?
Most nonprofits,
exactly, but okay,
from a profit for their users.
No. See, no, you're looking at it differently. When I say it,
hold on. The state of Wisconsin is running like a business right now. They have a surplus. That surplus is our taxpayer dollars that are being held at the state treasury and not given to the people.
Because you don't have people that you got.
They should not. The state should not have a surplus.
But what
the
I'm
federal
saying,
government should not have a deficit.
But what I'm saying to you is this: they don't have godly principles. Okay,
right.
Let me take God Squad. Okay, I use God Squad, my organization, God Squad. God Squad is ran like a business to do what it does best. And God Squad, what it does best is make sure the people of the city of Milwaukee are being taken care of. So we have to do biblical principles to make sure we're managing the money that comes in perfectly, but we're giving better service to the people outside. So when somebody's homeless, when somebody needs services for a funeral, or somebody need a job and we're working with them to get a job, and we're transporting them. So we're governing like a business to make sure that the service that we provide is excellent service.
Okay, I get what you're saying, and I would be very careful using commerce terms when we're speaking about government and ministry.
Okay, didn't the Bible, wait a minute. Didn't the Bible tell you to count the cost?
Yeah, but that's not a business term.
No. See, because y'all taking it. That's a biblical principle. You have to count the cost. What man starts?
Yeah, we might lose our lives for the gospel of Christ. I mean, that's
responsible.
Okay. Wait. No. Hold on. Wait. The gospel, when he told us to count the cost, you got to count the cost. No man's build a house and then in the middle of it say, oh my God, we can't finish it or anything. When I'm talking about, I'm not talking about governing according to what our government is doing right now, because if there is a surplus, then we already know they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
No, okay, Dr. King, I get what you're saying.
But how many of them are really God-fearing people that's in charge right now?
Well, not many, if any at all.
That's okay. So that's what
why I'm saying semantics kind of matter here, because the
really because see, now you get like them and using pronouns and all that crap. Okay, let me ask this.
Then why are you so offended if we call ourselves?
I'm not offended. But what I'm saying to you is this: Joseph was in government. Did he not govern in a business mindset to make sure the people was taken care of?
Yeah, he also created a socialist Egypt. I'm not sure we would necessarily want to follow his business principle.
And here's the thing. This is why I'm being so specific. Because if we're focused on business is the way business is understood today. Business is about profit. If we're looking at being organized, looking at financing and budgeting for a specific purpose, that is not business.
Right.
If you take biblical principles,
where in the Bible does it ever mention business? If we're looking
now, there you go.
I mean, it talks about working. It talks about working with our hands. It talks about doing everything,
labor and
right. Okay. And the laborer is worthy of his wages and all of those things. But that's not talking. But there are specific scriptures that talk about governance that don't have to do with business. Okay. Those are separate.
So did Jesus not use a parable where he gave 1 10 talents, 1 5 talents, and 1 1 talent?
Yeah.
Did he talk about that? Okay, was those not biblical principles that he judged them on when he came back?
It had to do with what they did with what he gave them. That had to do with the gifts.
Is that
God
not
gives
dealing
us.
with business though?
No.
I like Rustin's
No?
last point. Last time
Well,
I checked,
okay,
you should
now
take
you
these
talked
on
about,
purpose.
hold on, Mercy, because you talked about profit. When he gave the 10 talent, did he make profit?
Well, yeah, he invested what God
Did
gave
he?
him.
Okay, he invested. That's dealing business, right? He gave
That
one
was-
five.
But
He
that was
gave
a
one
parable-
5 talents.
That was a parable dealing with people who were given gifts that God gave them and were told to steward them well, and the people who buried their talents, their skills in the dirt were not treated the same by God as the ones who actually invested those talents and used them
And made profit.
That was a different, it wasn't a,
But wait a minute. Did they make profit?
they invested their talents and gave them back to God. So I mean, not
Did they make a
not
profit though?
technically.
In the parable, did they make a profit?
I don't understand what that has to do with governing.
No. See, because y'all twisted it all up.
I don't think so.
They're trying to create a separation between governance and business. They should not be.
If you use
I
the principle,
So I went to several churches where they treated the church ministry like a business, and it ruined the church because the church ministry is a jurisdiction of governance over where the body of Christ is working within the world to disciple and bring nations into God's kingdom. That is not business. That is ministry. That is our core responsibility as followers of Christ. And when
yes,
they treated it like a business, they had all of these different umbrella ministries, and it broke up the family.
okay,
it
so wait. So let me ask this question. When Jesus dealt with those 3, right? One had 10, he doubled. The other one had 5, he doubled. The last one didn't do anything with it. And Jesus said, you could have even put it in a bank and it would have grew interest. Did he not?
Yeah, but the parable itself was talking about the gifts and talents that God gives us, the skills that God gives us, and that he wants us to use them and not bury them.
It's about stewardship. It's not about the profit for profit.
So what do you think? Okay, I'm so glad you used that word. So what do you think a county supervisor would be judged on? Their stewardship of what they done with the taxpayers' money.
But that's exactly why I'm trying to create a delineation between business and stewardship.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference
Stewardship
between
is our responsibility to God. Business is our responsibility to our own bottom line, basically.
Right. Business does not go beyond the business owner.
Yeah.
You
can use biblical principles in business, but there's like
so if a business owner used the principles of God for stewardship,
then they really have a ministry.
Yeah.
They don't have a business, they have a ministry.
So then, okay, since you want to use since we are playing on words, then become a county supervisor and do ministry by helping those people in Jackson County.
I don't think becoming a county supervisor has to do with governance, and there are different jurisdictions of governance. And yeah.
So you saying being a county supervisor is not a ministry?
I think it's a service to the people. I don't know if it's
that's ministry, right?
So here's the thing. I think that all the work that we do should be done for the glory of God. I do think there's a difference between discipling the nations and working within the jurisdiction of government, but you can utilize biblical principles while doing something. Basically, your biblical principles inform the decisions you make, the things that you vote on or say no to, right? That's a little bit different than ministry. Really? Because here's the thing. I think that I think that the way that we have the county government set up is not actually representing the people. I think that
is why people like you and Sarah and me and other godly people should be in government, because one of the mountains that God wants us to take, or the sector that God wants us to take, is government. Yes or no?
Say that again. Sorry, I was reading Jared's comment. I'm sorry.
Do I talk in my sleep? You know what? I've
Who
never
said, "Do you
heard
talk
anybody
in your
tell
sleep?"
me.
Jared did.
Oh. So let me ask, okay, so my question to you again is this.
Mm-hmm.
If the founding fathers, well, not even the founding fathers, I use you guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys take your rightful place as county supervisors, will you not govern by the principles of God?
Say that again.
If, let's say, both of y'all is on the county board, would you not use godly wisdom and godly principles to govern your district?
Well, yeah.
Is that not ministry?
I guess in a sense.
Well, no, let me use your word. Well, yeah, it's a ministry. No matter where we see, this is what we got to stop.
Right,
Look,
serving God, serving
listen,
people according to God's purpose for our
right.
lives.
So no matter where we at in life, whether we're in government, education, business, arts, entertainment, media, wherever we at, our job is to bring the godly principles into that arena.
I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just trying to figure out why we should be treating government and church and all of these other things as business, like in a business model, because
no,
that's
not a business, not a business model. You handle it as a good steward with the biblical principles that God has set before us. No matter where we at, we don't change who we are. We change where we at. We don't change, but where we are.
I think part of the challenge, Sarah, is that Dr. King is functioning so much from a kingdom perspective that
totally kingdom perspective.
Hang on. It's actually a respect thing. I'm actually praising you.
I'm scared now.
So your vision of what business is supposed to look like is not what we're used to hearing and seeing as business. What you're talking about is what we see as a ministry and being stewards. Yeah. But because you're already functioning at that level, and we're having to deal with, and I know you are too, but because we're having to deal with this in between of trying to bring people into this concept of biblical business functioning, aka godly stewardship of resources and service, you know, when people think of, and it's the default right now, hopefully we can upgrade it to what you're thinking, but the default right now is this separate, business is commerce, business is very much separate from ministry and stewardship. And so when we're talking about business,
we're getting a different picture from it.
Is to come back and remember where most people are functioning, thinking about what business is and is not.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at business from a totally different perspective from what the main understanding of what business is.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to be very clear about what you're envisioning business as. You're looking at business as godly stewardship of our service, our ministry, and our purpose and our resources. And that's not the typical sense of business. That's why I was so particular about it.
Well, I'll let you slide with that one, but
I think you did a really good job on that, Amber.
I'm giving you your props.
If that's the model we're going with, then yeah, sure, I will say business. Sure, we need to treat everything in that way.
Right.
But the
go ahead.
But yeah, like you said, there is something to be said for semantics, especially in this world where constantly we're getting definitions changed and modified to suit people's feelings and whatever. There are certain words that we hear that automatically puts us in. Whenever I hear business, I think Walmart, I think Target, I think, all of these organizations
and corporations.
Yes, who are making a profit off of the people and not
and that's where if we can help shift in a positive way through how we communicate and anticipating what the other person is likely thinking,
Yeah.
You know, based on this conversation, I hope that everyone here now who thinks of the term business second guesses, you know, oh, business can be biblical. It can be stewardship, you know, but helping now everyone who's not been part of this thread, this podcast, help them transition to business in the sense of conducting busyness, serving according to our purpose.
Right. And I think that this is why I always deal with it from a kingdom perspective, because you have to govern everything by a kingdom perspective. So that means, and what I mean by that as a kingdom perspective, wherever Sarah are operating, because she's a kingdom citizen, her district is supposed to prosper. Maybe she doesn't know her job as a county supervisor all the way, but it doesn't matter because she has the wisdom of God with her. So when we start to look at this thing from a kingdom perspective, it's nothing we can do, because why? We got the cheat sheet. We got God. We got the cheat sheet. So we're supposed to go in and make a difference, not by our words. That's why I say, let her light show signs.
Yeah.
You know, so now they be like, oh my God, what is she doing differently? Then that's why when I manage $1 million companies, when I go into a place, they was like, oh my God, why is it changing? What is the difference? Because the kingdom of God is here. So the standard changes, right? The quality changes. Everything changes.
Right.
Not me going in as a church goers hollering, no, but going in demonstrating the power of God, the wisdom of God. And so what happens is, I'm gonna catch up with them. I know they got a lot of comments coming, but the thing about it, so we have to think kingdom. That's why when I look at business, I don't look at business the way people see business. When I look at government, I don't see government the way it is. That's why I don't blame Democrats or Republican anymore. The biggest problem is they are nice people, but they're just spiritually dead.
Yeah.
They don't have an answer for the spiritual problems like the spirit of pride and the rest of them that we are dealing with.
Yeah.
So we have to look at it for what it really is versus what they're portraying. Because if you're spiritually dead, you can't see what we see.
Right. Right.
Right. So just like when we was talking about the flag, nobody understands throwing that flag is saying that this is what's governing us.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I was saying. But I love getting these two with you two, boy.
Well, and I don't know if I actually answered Jared. No, I as far as I know, I don't talk in my sleep, but I've never really had anybody other than my husband tell me whether I did or not. So
I do wake up with revelations, though.
Yes, I do. I know, and like I've started keeping a notebook by my. Well, I've been keeping a notebook by my bed for years because if I wake up with something, I'll write it down real fast. So, Terrence, I have no problem with making a profit on your own business. Honestly, I do not. I don't think building wealth is a sin. It's what we do with that wealth, really, that is the issue. And a lot of these companies are using their wealth to promote agendas that are anti-God, and that's the problem that I have with it.
But you know what? Let me say that
godless business model.
Right. So let me say this then. We know that ungodly people are using godly principles to profit their business, right? And here's the problem I have. You have people who claim they know God, but don't know his principles. So they can't start a business to change like a Walmart or a Target. Why can't godly people who understand the principles of God go in those environments and do it? But you know why? Because their mindset is not kingdom, because they'll say, oh, well, I can't do this. I got to make this deal and I got to do this. No, you don't have to do that. That's what you was taught in school. That's what you was taught by somebody that don't know God. This is why it is so important for people like us to have these kind of shows, to have these kind of conversations, to even go out and demonstrate what we do. When I was transporting 450 people a day, the government, the city of Milwaukee, and certain employment agencies were saying there was no jobs. So they come to me hollering, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
And that's when I got a chance to give my testimony. I'm doing this because God opened those doors.
Yeah.
This is why. So now we're answering why and how we're able to do what we do. It's not us as a person because we're not that smart, but it is with the God in us because now we're connected to God. And like you say, you wake up with revelation. He tell you how to do a business. He'll tell you how to manage your district. He'll tell us how to win local races. He will begin to tell us if we follow him.
Yeah.
But if we don't follow him, and we that vine that's broken away, if we that branch that's broken away from the vine, then we just like everybody else.
Yeah, and you know the interesting thing about all of this is going back to what Jared said about being knowledgeable in fields. Like, I'm not an expert in any one of these fields. Like, I know that I can have my opinions on things challenged, and I should have them challenged, and be constantly re-examining them to see the cool thing is and you guys have seen my bookshelf and all of these things. Actually, in a couple weeks I'm going to have a different view, so you'll actually get to see more of my books. But it's because I'm reading, it's because I'm educating, it's because I'm not content to stay with the status quo. I'm not content to have just a little bit of knowledge in these areas. I have a brain that God has given me, and I have the ability to take in information and to analyze it and think through it and find out what is true and what is not, and things that are gray areas. And it is, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, but I just don't have time for that. I'm a mom of 6. I've got a baby on the way. Like, I'm homeschooling.
Right.
You know, I'm maintaining a home. I'm a
We all can make excuses. Like, I'm a single mom who has to commute between 2 states, deal with court stuff, and help manage a motel, a ministry inn, and help. You know, I want to do gardening and all these things. Like, I have excuses too. And every morning at 6 o'clock, I'm reading my Bible for at least 30 minutes. Every morning at 6:30, I'm journaling. I am setting aside time. I could be watching TV during that time. I could be,
I have no excuse.
Especially since we keep giving you new books to buy. Yeah, and that's it. Really, yes, it really comes down to, are those fundamental principles important enough to you to learn them and to know them and to continue to educate and inform yourself? And it's not out of pride, but out of the fact that I don't know a whole lot.
It's a sacred honor and duty and privilege.
Exactly.
To be able to
if I am going to, pledge my life, my fortunes, and my sacred honor to preserve and protect the freedoms of others, then I sure better know what that means, right? Like, this is, we say a lot of things, and I think that's the problem in the church today, is that they say a whole lot of things, they make a whole lot of promises, and they don't even understand the full magnitude of what they are preaching from the pulpit.
And that's why I wanted to try to circle things around to how do we physically activate this?
Yeah.
How do we take action, even on the smallest first step?
Yeah. We have to demonstrate it.
Yeah.
We have to demonstrate it. That's right. I mean, that's what Jesus did, right? He demonstrated. Then Nicodemus came to him at night and said, hey, something ain't right here. We know you for that by God.
Some of this demonstration does happen in private, reading our first Constitution, the Bible, for instance. That happens not in front of others. And so we have to be able to convey that.
But you get prepared away from people
and I think
demonstrate it in front of people.
Because that's what we're doing, like with shows like this, or, with making conversation on Facebook. Maybe it's not the best place in the world, but it does.
Rumble or one of the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah. But these, like, engaging in our culture, engaging in our, not in a way that accepts everything about culture, but in a way that opens up the door for building rapport with others, right? Like, you're not meeting somebody on the streets, you're not with blue hair and multiple tattoos and piercings, you're not going to make friends with them if you go, you're in sin because you're doing all this.
I used to have blue hair back in like 8th grade, so
right, exactly.
And I would do it again.
Well, and this goes along with the idea of when we look at somebody, we should not be making snap judgments about them
Right.
until we get to know them, until we have built a rapport with them, until we've built a relationship.
No, like a trust factor.
Right. And giving of ourselves,
And
ministering.
that's exactly
to
what
them.
Dr. King was doing with those
Yeah.
library visits around Milwaukee. He was getting to know the people in the different communities of Milwaukee. And that is living it. That is
Well, and then you gotta you're right. And like when I see somebody that's dressed different, I make comments for them to feel comfortable around me, right? I'd be like, can you do my hair like that? Or, how many do you got? Especially at the Brewers game. I'd be like, how many you got?
Some level of interest in them as a person and their interests.
Right.
Right. And they'd be like, got what? I say tattoos. How many you got? Oh, I got 20. Really? Did it hurt? You love pain? Just to, because see, one of the things that we have allowed as church to do is judge everybody and forgot that
everything so freaking seriously.
Yeah.
And forgot we all
that's fun.
Here's something that and this is where a lot of my stuff comes from now, is just this idea of looking at human beings as being made in the image of God. I actually worked at Walmart in college for a little while because I was a poor, broke college student and I needed the money. So I took what I could get. But I remember that I had a coworker who was of the LGBTQ persuasion. And I had so much fun with this guy. He was a sweetheart. And we just talked and did life together. We'd get together outside of work with a group of friends and just hang out and go out to eat or whatever the case may be. And I remember one time, shortly before I had quit Walmart and I was working like a CNA job. And I remember right before I left, he came up to me and he said, "Sarah, I just wanted to let you know, I have never met a Christian who didn't automatically look at me and condemn me until you." And it was because I did not see him as an LGBTQ person, right? I saw him as
and you might have just opened the door for them to explore it because you were coming first with love.
Right. And he, like I said, he was one of my best friends at the time, it was just like, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I've got the token, gay person or anything.
Everyone's always touting this verse or this line that Jesus was friend of sinners. Well, what does that even mean? If we're not
friend to all of us, because we are all sinners, right? Like,
you know what?
Well, I mean, you have to understand that if they can't, if we say that we belong to God and they can't feel love from us,
exactly,
then something is wrong.
Right. If they don't ask us what is the reason for the hope that we have, what is the reason for the love that we share with others, then we're, like you said, we're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. And that was my first wake-up call. Because like I said, I came out of this ATI thing. There was a whole lot of condemnation. If you did not live your life in a particular way, we pitied the people who did not come out of that, right? Mm-hmm. And coming out of that and coming into, I mean, it was a culture shock for me going to college because there was a lot of stuff I did not get. I still am not used to, but there was a moment in time where I realized if I'm not showing the love of Christ, I am not following him. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's not to say I agreed with his lifestyle. He knew that I didn't agree with it, but he also saw that was not what defined him for me. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Back in youth group in high school, I don't remember why, but my mom had come to speak. She was a volunteer at a certain big nonprofit organization that helped, especially like storm and fire victims. I'm not going to name names here because it doesn't matter. Anyways, one of the parents of my classmate asked, do you like basically preach the gospel to, these fire victims? And my mom was like, no, and it kind of offended this mom. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that's not the time or place, but through her love for those people and care for those people, coming out at 2 a.m, 4 a.m, after she was fighting the fire, on the fire department, coming back out now as a volunteer to come help and be of service. Through her love for them as a person, the love of Jesus showed through naturally.
Right.
And then that opened the door, like, how can you do what you do? And then it opened
Right.
the door to have a personal conversation. But as a volunteer was not necessarily the time or place to, oh, God's got you, you know, as a non-religious nonprofit. And that's the thing, like so many, particularly in the Christian world, think you have to go shove Jesus down people's throats.
Gotta
Just
hand
like
out a
they're trying
tract, or you gotta,
right, just
Yeah.
like they're trying to shove this other stuff down our throats. It's like, no,
Yeah.
live by example. And that's, again, facts tell but stories
Yeah.
sell. Your story is your life.
One of the horrible things that I learned growing up was when you're out evangelizing, right? You're supposed to start with the question, do you know where you're going to be when you die? What a horrible question to start with, because that is not the epitome of the gospel. The good news is Christ is salvation for all. Like, that he already took that punishment and he is standing as mediator for us. So to start with that question, it's like, no, especially when you're talking to a stranger, who wants to answer a personal question like that?
Oh, something like that. I've had that.
Yeah.
I mean, back in college,
none of your business.
back in college, I would do it on purpose to make them uncomfortable, even though I knew my truth. I would say, well, I know I'm a sinner. I know where I'm going. You can leave me alone because there's no hope for me. I'm a sinner. You know, I would kind of turn it back around in their face.
Like, well, you know, I used to walk up to people and say, Sarah, if God asks you, why should I let you into heaven? What could you say? And I'll walk away.
Yeah.
And they could be, hold on, why are you gonna ask me a question like that and walk away?
Yeah. Well, and all of these messages that these fundamentalists that the church has preached for so long is that it doesn't point you to Christ. It points you to yourself, or to, oh, this person who is judging me, right? You're not seeing Christ in that.
It ends up coming across as judgment and not love.
Right.
What about the turn or burn message?
Turn or burn. Oh my gosh. Don't get me started. I grew up in fear of hell for my entire life, thinking that if I stepped out of line just once, I would be burning for eternity. There's no grace in that. There is no Christ in that.
I have such a loathing, pure loathing, for anyone who preaches that you're in God's hand and all you do is mess up once and he's dumping you.
Dumps you over the fire. Oh yeah.
There was an elder at a church that I kind of grew up in, and that was like his MO. Whenever he guest preached, it was always this brimstone and fire crap. And I'm not saying we should all be like the campus crew either, where it's only about salvation and nothing else. There's got to be this in between, because God does promise us certain things. You know, there are a lot of blessings and abundance that comes with being a faithful believer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's this in between. Yes, we do need to know some of this scary stuff, but it has to be balanced in and grounded in God's love too. Because God does love, otherwise he wouldn't have sent Jesus for us.
Yeah.
And this whole concept of and really the brimstone and fire sitting in God's hand is really contradictory to Jesus and salvation. Yeah. If you really look at it at just like a surface level, it's a very contradictory.
Oh, that's an entirely new topic I would love to discuss. I probably got the most controversial
podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, check this out.
I'm okay with that.
You two, I'm scared to have controversials, because when y'all
you're not afraid of anything, Dr.
You rile us up most of the time anyways, all on your own.
But you know, when we look at it though, and this is why people see there was a great falling away, but it wasn't a great falling away because they didn't love God. There was a great falling away because of religious rules and regulations that they added on. When you telling me as a young man, I can't play basketball, I can't go swimming, I can't go to the movies, we can't have a TV in the house,
can't drink wine.
And that's why last week can't
have wine.
Yeah.
You if you go on a date with a girl, you gotta be chaperoned, so you gotta let folks listen to your conversations and
Mhm.
all this dumb stuff.
Yep.
You ain't. I don't want to come to church.
It was all of it was always the message of Jesus and all of this other stuff, right?
Right.
Instead of seek first
Mhm.
his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these
Yep.
things will be added unto you, right?
And that's exactly why I last week brought up that Pagan Christianity book, because
Mhm.
it puts to question, in I feel like a pretty healthy way, not a condemnation way, puts to question some of these rituals and traditions and teachings that we have. Because are they really biblical? Are they really of the Bible and of God? Or are
Yeah.
they man-made manipulations of
Mhm.
versus
Well, I got a new saying. I got a new saying for y'all. Who the Son set free is free indeed, but we put you back in jail.
Yeah, or you have to. That was one of the things about ATI was basically, and he even told stories about this, about people coming to him and going, well, you know, how do I need to, I've made a mess of my life. How do I get to, you know, how do I get to Christ, right? And he would literally tell them that they needed to clean themselves up first and start following these basic principles, and then he would talk to them about finding Christ. What a horrible thing to say. While we were yet his enemies, Christ died for us. Like that is a scriptural principle. While we were yet sinners, while we were his enemy, opposed to God, he died for us. And here is a human man saying, yeah, you got to get cleaned up first. And that's a lot of what, like, if you're not a progressive church nowadays who accepts everything, you are the fundamentalist church who, and I know I'm generalizing, there are good churches out there, but you are the fundamentalist church who says you got to get cleaned up before you walk through these doors.
Yeah.
That is not the message of Christ. It is taking man-made rules and putting them over Christ, over Christ's authority over our lives. And that is a horrible, horrible message. Have any of
Yes, I have seen. Yes, vision. Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and
Yep.
I tell you that it was for me, it was one of the amazing things of my life. This is why I stand for God the way I stand, because I had that vision. I had that visitation. So I know that God is real. Nobody can change my mind, because I had those. I had more than one visitation. I had an out-of-body experience. I had those things happen to me. And Jared, no, I was not smoking weed. No, I was not drinking.
Sure about that? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I wasn't smoking
your
weed.
stallion years?
I was not drinking. I was not popping no pills or any of those things. But you know,
I think my first big encounter happened when I was around 15, and that was during that really like ATI period of time. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I was basically just asking God to, I can't see you in all of the mess that I'm in right now. I need to know that you exist, because not that there was never a moment in my life where I felt like I was didn't believe in God, but there was a moment in my life where it was like, when you do exist, but I need to see that. I need to have some solid, that there is a God out there that doesn't look like what I've been taught my whole life, because that God I don't want to follow, right? And so that was my first big experience, and there were a couple others, but that one was a major turning point in my life, because it really got me started on searching for myself and understanding who God was for myself, as opposed to just, you know, kind of hanging on my parents' coattails of faith. So
right. My most memorable experience, I was at a church up in Minnesota, and denomination I'd actually never heard of, but it was, I felt very in alignment with them, and I could definitely feel like the Spirit of God in this church. And anyways, we were in worship one time, and standing, and I might have had my hands raised, I don't remember, but we were singing that song Great I Am. And at one point I could literally see, with as close as just truly a vision, as it was saying, there is no power of hell, nor any scheme of man, whatever, great I am, as there is no power in hell. I saw this like light in just this, it was not the lights in the church. It was just like this presence of a light
Yeah.
that just started to grow. And as it kept growing and growing to the point where when it said great, when we sang great I am, even outside sunlight, and it was a sunny day that day, even outside sunlight seemed like darkness compared to this light of God. Just this blinding white light of God. And just like for the longest time, it brought me to tears instantly.
Yeah.
But for the longest time, even just recounting that story would bring tears to my eyes, because that was like the most spiritual experience I'd ever had in my life up to that point. And it was profound. Like this light washed over me and everyone there in the congregation.
Yeah.
And it was just amazingly powerful. So
You sure you didn't drink the Kool-Aid?
yes, I am sure.
No. Hey, we
Yeah,
gotta get
my first encounter was completely on my own in my room. That was like nobody else was around, and I didn't even know what drugs were at that point.
we have to get Jared on the show so he can tell his encounter.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Jared got a very good one. And also, Jared, yes, let's do Friday Fire Up. Fired Up Friday. Let's do a show called Fired Up Friday. We're already gonna get in trouble, so I don't mind. I was just reading, you guys, just to turn for a second. Milwaukee bond rate just dropped again. And so now for Milwaukee to even borrow money, it's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars. So the city, in other words, the city credit score done dropped again.
Just dropped it.
So Milwaukee is in serious trouble.
Dire need.
Because we're facing a $156 million structure deficit.
Wow. Maybe they should reduce some of that structure.
Yeah. I mean, this is where the wisdom of God come in to show us how to get out the hole.
Yeah.
This is, and so.
And I'm pretty sure defunding a certain law enforcement is not going to help.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things that's not going to help. And so when we look at it, and now they also talking about the Milwaukee streetcar is stuck in a limbo with no state, federal funds in place for expansion. So you got all of these stuff going on.
Yeah.
And again, it comes with what happened to Joseph, right?
Yeah.
Joseph sat there and knew that a deficit was coming.
Yep.
And God gave him a plan and says, okay, put this in place and you won't have to worry about a deficit.
Right.
In other words, a new word for deficit, a famine, right? You ain't got to worry about a famine if you do this.
Yeah.
And so we have to, that's why it's so important you got people of God in office so they get the wisdom of God on how to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
What did J. Rod say?
Awesome. I can't wait to hear that, Jared.
Yeah.
I did want to touch Rustin. We shouldn't be having faith in churches or in other men. People anyways. Our faith should only be in God. Because churches are made up of humans. Humans are nature sinful beings.
Yeah.
That's our nature. And so and I understand that can be a major mind shift for a lot of us who grew up in being very tied to a church
That's because you grew up. That's because you grew up in religion and not the kingdom.
Right.
That's
exactly.
all.
Exactly. Most of us did. And that being part of a church was our religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Religion.
Well, and that was the most dangerous aspect of ATI when I was even after I was a part of it and before I was a part of it, was that it was focused on the teachings of one man who claimed to have all the answers. That's a cult.
Yes.
That we do not follow the authority of men. We follow the authority of Christ, and that's why when people make judgments, that's why I just read a book from one of the actually right here, one of the daughters of that Duggar family, and her thing was becoming free indeed, disentangling her faith from her fear. and that's like we hear so much about the deconstruction of faith, right? Like where they literally tear it down to the studs and they leave it completely. They don't rebuild it. And what she was saying is no, what we need to do is we need to rebuild it based on Christ, not based on any one human being, any one church institution. It is based on the founder of this faith, right? The founder of our faith. And that's why when we look at the people who have deconstructed their faith or walked away from God, you have to question whether they ever even had it, or if they had faith in people who told them who God was, right?
Well, most of them have faith in the people who told them. That's why when that person dies, they leave church.
Right. Or when they get jaded by the world and the world comes in and starts questioning and they have no answers, and they look at the person who gave them these supposed answers that aren't answers, and then they go, well, then it must not be true. All of it. Exactly. I got to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's where we judge the religion, or we judge the faith based on the founder of it, right? So when you look at Buddhism or Taoism or any of Islam or any of, you judge it based on the people who founded it, and they were fallible human beings, right? When you judge it, Christianity, based on Christ, he was the only infallible human being and God at the same time. And he's the only one who has any basis for stating, I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? And so that's where we've lost so much in our churches, because we don't have that answer. We don't point people to that answer. Don't look at me, look at Christ, right?
Amen. On that note, we are over 2 hours.
Wow. Yep. That went fast.
And I have to go get lunch because I have a call at 12:30. So yeah.
Well, you already know the routine. So you ready? Bam, it's on you.
All right. So I'm going to read something from a book called The Gulag Archipelago. And it was kind of along the lines of the pride issue and everything, but the word is power. Just this idea of mankind having so much power over others, and it really is steeped in pride. But anyway, it says, power is a poison well known for thousands of years. If only no one were ever to acquire material power over others. But to the human being who has faith in some force that holds dominion over all of us, and who is therefore conscious of his own limitations, power is not necessarily fatal. For those, however, who are unaware of any higher sphere, it is a deadly poison. For them, there is no antidote. So yeah, I'm reading that for my depth program, and it really is dealing with that idea of power, pride, whatever you want to call it. If you don't understand that there is a higher moral authority, that there is a higher authority above you, above God, above man-made governments, not above God, above man-made governments, that is God, right? then you are not going to find things of this world as fatal to you, to your soul and spirit, because you have a proper understanding of the jurisdictions of government from the top down. And the top starts with God, and then us, and then it moves through all the way up to human-made government. And so yeah, that's just what I wanted to leave you guys with. We had a really good discussion, and a lot of trying to figure out the semantics of things, and trying to figure out what we were saying and how we were agreeing and disagreeing and all that stuff. And I love doing that. I love this because it's bringing understanding. It's bringing that awareness that there is something higher and bigger than us. So yeah, thanks for listening in.
Sure, you should have ended with that's my TED Talk. My quote is going to come also from anyways, it's going to come from Jeremiah. So I guess also, because my one earlier was, I'm looking at Jeremiah 14 right now. And the second half is about God saying how, because the people weren't obeying his word, and they were, burning the incense to Baal and all these other things, that he's basically bringing his wrath. And Jeremiah didn't really argue, but was very concerned, saying like, oh no, God, the prophets are telling the people that they won't see sword or suffer famine. And And then verse 14 starts with, but the Lord said to me, these prophets are prophesying a lie in my name. I did not send them, nor did I command them or speak to them. They're prophesying to you a false vision, worthless divination, and deceit of their own minds. 15. Therefore, this is what the Lord says concerning the prophets who prophesy in my name, though I did not send them, and who say there will never be sword or famine in this land. By sword and famine, these prophets will meet their end. So this kind of ties into all of the things, including what we're being taught about pride, what we're being taught in churches by fellow humans, and not having faith in them, and making sure we are not being prideful in our understanding. If we are focused on God's word and God's teaching for us and how to live our lives, and I realize this is or Old Testament, and we're in New Testament function now, but using this as a lesson, not to rely on other people. Go right to the source. The Bible is our source, and getting that connection, that spiritual connection with God, so we've got that channel open so we can receive, our true direction and what we should do from God, not through any man or woman. And if we stay true to that truth with a capital T, to that connection to the creator of all things, we're not going to go wrong. But if we go based on our own understanding or go based on another man's understanding, that's where we're going to fail, because that's someone else's interpretation. While it might or might not be true for them, what's true for us is God's word.
Amen.
When did I become such a minister? Holy moly, this is not, wow.
So we're growing and developing in our gifts.
Nope.
Yes. So I'm going to do Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The biggest problem is we're too busy trying to be religious instead of being kingdom citizens to understand what God is really saying to us, so we can take our proper place and have dominion over the earth. And I think it's time that we go back and revisit what Christ himself, if we're going to follow him, we need to know him, okay? And I don't need to know him from a Baptist standpoint, or a Catholic standpoint, or Lutheran standpoint. I need to know him from a personal standpoint. And so as I go forward, I will understand why he came, what he wants from me, and the works, like he said, the works that he done shall we do, in greater works than these. So we need to know how he did his works. So I believe that doing these scary debates and getting beat up by two passionate mothers, you gotta have tough skin. No, but to really say it though, in order for our country to get better locally, we got to go back and do it God's way. We got to put the principles of God back in this rightful place, so that we can have a better place. And this is not just to be beaten on anybody lifestyle or anything. We love everybody, and we just standing on the principle of God. And he told us to love. He didn't tell us to like, because here's the thing. There's people that you go in church with that you don't like their ways, but you still got to love them. So we just got to love everybody. And we hope y'all join us again next week, Tuesday, when these two beat me up a little more.
And he makes us blush. So
yes. Yes, we're the abusers, apparently.
Hey, that's the best way to put it.
We challenge you, Dr. King. We challenge you.
Well, here's this. I'm gonna play like the woke people. I don't like to be challenged. Just whatever I say goes,
My feelings.
I'm in my feelings now. I gotta go lick my wounds, and and everything. But
I have to
people-
say it is very funny to see, and I know there's something behind it, but it is very funny to see people being so offended by the mention of pride as a sin. Like it really, it's almost humorous.
And
if
there's
it
a
weren't sad.
reason that it is offensive
Yeah.
to people, because it's a direct confrontation of how we've been living.
Yeah.
And we don't want that confrontation, because broken human nature is we want that instant gratification,
Yep.
and that doesn't always mean it's right. I love Oreos, and I will eat my Oreos and then have that regret.
Yeah.
Because I thought the instant gratifications that Oreos gave me.
Yep.
I
Okay,
know
but-
that they're not feeding my body, my temple.
Right.
And that's like a really simplistic example.
Yeah.
So that we're not like really offending anyone right here. Or
Right.
So wait a minute, because you might be offending me. Do you like regular Oreos or double stuff?
double stuff.
Oh, y'all said that at the same time. I'm scared.
Oh, especially the
No.
cool mint double stuff. Oh,
Oh, I'm not a big fan of mint, but have you noticed the double stuff has gotten smaller?
Yes.
not
It's-
surprised.
It's
I
not
haven't-
double stuffed anymore.
Yeah, of course the regular stuff is like, oh, there's a hint of stuffing in there.
Yeah, I think I see something white under there.
And now aren't they doing like mega stuff?
Yes, mega stuffed. Mega stuff is what the double stuff used to be, I think.
Just about, yeah. But
So,
And
Yeah.
why do the cookie has to be black?
I don't know.
because it's chocolate. Chocolate's
right.
so delicious.
Yeah, Terrence is right. We shouldn't start about that. We'll have to do that for the next episode.
Yep. I'm cool with covering that as an episode.
Yep.
I got
Pine cone. Then you're gonna throw in the pine cone.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
all right.
If you guys
All
ever
right.
get up to central Minnesota, in Maconia, there is, I think it's Bakery on Main. Oh my Lanta, if you like Quick Trips Glazers
Wait a minute.
donut,
Oh my what?
what did I say?
My
Oh
Lanta.
my.
Yeah, have you never seen Full House?
No.
I've seen it.
Oh, you gotta go watch. Okay. Anyways, if you like Quick Trips Glazers donuts,
Hmm.
they have glazed donuts that are like on cloud 9 in comparison.
Like Krispy Kreme.
I don't know, I've never had Krispy Kreme. But theirs is
It'll
made
melt in
homemade,
your mouth.
fresh from scratch. Like it's their bakery, like they make them, and so
Yeah.
like to support that kind of stuff. But
Oh yeah. And
Um,
Krispy Kreme went woke, so now it's no longer a good.
exactly. So yeah, since we're talking about baked goods and pine cone.
Everything is woke, but
Not everything.
I like chocolate. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Actually, sorry, not sorry.
so let's say this. To be continued.
Yep.
See, Terrence is always starting stuff.
I've also never, there's a lot of stuff that I've never had, but it's so processed and like
He said, "You never had Krispy Kreme? Repent." Who never had Krispy Kreme?
me.
Repent.
And I'm okay with it because
Hey,
I'd
I'm
rather support local.
finna be religious right now. You haven't had Krispy Kreme? You're going to hell.
You can eat a whole dozen Krispy Kremes and not feel full. They're that light and fluffy
Nice.
and melty.
I used to be a full-on glutton with Quick Trips 6-pack of the. So I
Yep.
get it. And back when my hometown had a grocery store, they made pretty darn good donuts. Their cinnamon rolls and
Yep.
or cinnamon buns and the long johns not filled. Huh.
Yeah.
Listen what Terrence-
Nice.
Oh man.
So we got to take you, but all right, people, we got to go because so much got to get done. And
Yep. And I
Let's
gotta
see.
eat. Baby's
Me too.
baby's
I have
whining.
17 minutes to
Uh-oh.
figure out what I'm eating.
well,
I've got some good leftovers. I made stuffed chicken breasts last night.
How soon can you be here? That
See.
sounds delicious.
y'all is not right. So, ladies and gentlemen, huh?
Why are we not right? Because we like stuffed chicken?
No, because
Oh.
y'all in Jefferson County. I'm in Milwaukee County.
Jackson.
We're in
Jackson
Jackson
County.
County,
Well, Jackson
Unfortunately,
County.
not my favorite president county.
right?
Well, y'all in Jackson County. I'm in Milwaukee County. There's no way I'm gonna get a
There's a
stuffed
little
chicken
irony
breast.
behind that. Like it's the seat of the Ho Chunk Nation, and Jackson was the one who did the Trail of Tears. That seems a little bit kind of
Ironic.
yeah. I didn't think about that before, but that'll be another conversation too.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that because I got some questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look what Terrence say.
I don't even know where there's a Krispy Kreme.
Down south. You got to go down south.
Okay.
No, Milwaukee
I'm gonna-
has Krispy Kreme.
Do they really?
Yes, we do.
All right, next time we go, you're gonna have to at least go and try one. They're really good.
Yeah.
I will bring my enzymes and my probiotics.
So you gotta try Krispy Kreme in August.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, I will be making a flyer too for the summit.
So we're on for those dates. Okay.
Awesome.
Yes, August 18th through the 20th.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yep. So we will take care of that. All
All
right,
right.
ladies and gentlemen, we got to go because we'll do 3 hours and that baby will be kicking all of us through the screen.
Yep.
So we want to say to you guys, I better set it up because I'm ready. I know y'all ready.
So long, farewell.
Terrence, call me. Soon as we get off the air, call me, sir. All right, we see y'all later. God bless. God bless.